Hello, and welcome to the Tower Coffee Hour. This is your host, Preston, or Tyree. And this is the latest episode of the Mueller Neighborhood Association, or MNA, meeting that was held in March of 2026 on the 14th at Austin Energy. We had a great meeting, had a long session on the dog park, and it's very interesting. You really ought to look to the end and find the dog park session and hear what people had to say.
Presented our budget long distance, and we approved the budget. That's online, but you can see the details there.
Can you speak out, please, Andrew?
Sorry.
A little louder.
I thought I was speaking into the microphone. We approved our annual budget, 2026 budget last month, or in our minutes. We talked about our membership is on Zephy now. So if you join, you'll go through the Zephy app, and we're doing pretty well. We have our traditional committee reports. We talked about the 51st Street revitalization, which should be finished soon, and I'm going to request that they come present it's a 2012 bond, believe it or not, that they're just preparing the design for, because they had some complications. We're at our next meeting today. Is Jeff Bellatine here? He is head of the POA recruitment committee, and he talked about recruitment committee needs for the property owners, and we adjourned. Does anybody have any questions about the minutes from February? How about just approval by acclamation? And we'll put it on the website. And if anybody online ever has a question, raise your hand online or unmute. Our breakfast buddy today is our own Melanie McAfee, who had her International Food Day that I went to on Thursday out at the Bar Mansion. It was amazing, sustainable food program. And that was probably her biggest event of the year that she put on. So it's amazing that she was able to produce something for us today. So thank you. We have two guest speakers today, which I'm excited about. We have Willie Glen. He is from Greensleeves Nursery in Pflugerville. He's going to talk about plants and Central Texas plants. He's an expert in what might be appropriate for Mueller. And then after Willie, we have Laura Tull from Travis Audubon speaking on birds. And I will... Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
The coffee's also from the neighborhood. It was roasted here in the neighborhood. Not from the neighborhood, but it was roasted. So it's gradient. There's a QR code that's right above the coffee machine. So if you're interested, please check them out. If you're drinking the coffee, it's pretty dang good.
Amazing. He grinds in his house, I think. There were Facebook posts of him grinding his beans.
Yeah, that's right.
So support our neighborhood businesses. And I actually have a QR code out back for Littlefield Bakery. That was our breakfast buddy last month. And in fact, I will go this afternoon and pick up my order, because they have weekly orders of fresh baked goods. You pick them up warm. Our first speaker is Willie from Greensleeves Nursery in Pflugerville.
That's right. Hello. Okay. Am I speaking into this or into this?
Yes, the microphone.
Okay. Hello.
That's the taping.
Okay. Got it. How's everybody doing? Okay. So let me figure this out. There we go. Okay. So I'm gonna grab my phone so I can keep time. So yes, William Glen. Everybody calls me Willie or Willie G. I run his shop up in Pflugerville, right past the line. If you go up Cameron, you hit Dead Saw, make a left on Pecan. We're right there. It used to be called Green and Growing, if you're familiar with that old nursery. But we have changed it a little bit in that we are native specialists, and that's really important to the mission that I'm trying to achieve and my staff is trying to achieve. We also have a growing facility that used to be out in the country, but our fence line neighbor is now Mr. Musk. So I feel like that little house in the movie Up, where there's buildings all around the guy and he's got his balloons. That's me. So this here photo is me watering one of our greenhouses out there. And we're trying to just make it a little bit of a new model as regards the typical nursery, which is brokering plants from a grower. And those growers might be from anywhere. We're trying to preserve the native plants from seed. And we work with the Native Plant Rescue Project. We work with several landscapers who can correctly identify plants so that we make sure we know what we're growing. But the purpose of that is that, can anybody tell me what ecoregion we are on here, of the Texas ecoregions? Blackland Prairie, well done. You get a point. And the Blackland Prairie is typified by what are called vertisols. It's just a type of soil that is commonly referred to as black and white or shrink swell. And we all know that when it gets real wet, it moves houses around. When it gets real dry, it moves houses around. It's just noted for having a lot of water holding capacity. I'm just leaning over in a weird way here. So anyway, we're trying to make sure that we have plenty of those types of plants that are appropriate for that area. And we work with those organizations, particularly ones that will go out into the Blackland Prairie or the Edwards Plateau when something is destined for the bulldozer, when something's going to be developed, and they go out there and they will rescue the endangered plants and hopefully some seeds that they'll pass on to us, which we can then keep going in perpetuity, hopefully. So here in the Mueller area, we can assume that we're going to have that shrink swell soil, and it's going to have some challenges because it's also been compacted, it's been eroded, it's had some things done in preparation for the building that we can hopefully ameliorate for planting and to encourage some biodiversity out there. So if, for example, if you're concerned about bees, if you like moths, a lot of people don't think about moths, but when you grow for moths, you're growing things that are blooming at night, very fragrant, gardenias, jasmine, datura. Some of the things that are very showy, usually somewhat luminescent at night, especially under the moon, and very fragrant. And when it's August, I don't know how many of you want to be out in your garden at 4 in the afternoon, but I like being out there at 11 at night. Okay, might be a little late, but early in the morning too. So thinking about those things in biodiverse terms, you want to make sure that you have the building blocks. You want to have good soil, or appropriate soil rather, and the way that we can achieve that is by making sure that we have I think I actually did this in the wrong order, sorry. So we want to make sure that we reduce the bulk density of the soil, and that just means getting some compost in there, making sure that the physical characteristics of the soil are amenable to root growth. They allow for water to penetrate, that sort of thing. So the way we achieve that is usually just getting compost in there. This tool that's shown here is called a broad fork, and to me it's the most valuable tool I use. Because unlike a tiller, which skips around on the soil surface and is generally annoying, these will get down usually over a foot, and that's what we call the rhizosphere, the area where roots are actually the most active. So if you can get some compost just spread out like a rug on the surface of the soil and use your broad fork to just jam those knives in there, stand on top of it, and then lean back, you're getting that compost down really deep, and you're improving it, and everything you grow from that point on is going to do better, okay? So that's something that I think is really misunderstood, and I think because of our flooding problems, as we've seen in 2013 with Onion Creek or Kerrville this last summer, if we have soil that's more receptive and filled with vegetation, we will have fewer of those sorts of events. Like in the Front Range of Colorado, they require that 6 cubic yards of compost be put into every 1,000 square feet of property that's developed to get a certificate of occupancy. And I'm a little bit stunned that we don't do that here, considering like the severity of our flooding. Okay, so plants. This is the thing I'm passionate about. Somebody asked me, why do you do this? Is it for the fortune? No. Is it for the 18-hour days? If you compare the average nursery sold plant to what we sell, they're going to look very different, okay? Most plants and plant availability is driven by designers and landscape architects. No offense to landscape architects, no offense to designers, but they're going to have a very limited palette, and that palette is sort of in this hamster wheel that landscape architects will learn, okay, silver ponyfoot, for instance, or in this picture, there's a Queen Vic agave right at the top there. They learn that that's what's available. And so the growers continue to grow it because that's where the demand is. So there are over 8,000 individual species in Texas alone, and in our region, we have over 1,000 that are appropriate, that usually have some sort of symbiosis with some sort of an organism, right? But we'll probably have at any given time in the native world 100 that are available in nurseries, okay? And of those 100, what is very typical is cuttings, right? So let's say a Salvia gregii, autumn sage, you guys might know it. When you're buying 10 white autumn sage, they're literal clones of each other, right? And can we think what a disadvantage of a clone might be as opposed to something that's grown from seed? And what can happen is just imagine a pathogen comes through, right? You get a fungus or something, all 10 of them are gone, like dominoes, right? That's the problem with red-tip photinias. That's why they were so hot and then they were so not so quickly, because there's just an absolute apocalypse of them when one pathogen hits one plant. So what we do is we grow from seed so that there's genetic variation, but they're not going to be identical little clones, because I'm not thinking of plants like furniture. I'm thinking of it as a building block, as a tool for the land, from the land, and the basis of a food chain, right? So if I think of it that way, it doesn't look messy to me as opposed to a perfectly manicured Bermuda lawn, right? Which is, you know, it's pretty typical. This is a picture of Ashley. She's a good friend of mine, and she's the president and founder of the Native Plant Rescue Project, which, like I said, you can see that backhoe in the background. She's going out right in front of those pieces of equipment and making sure that she's grabbing something that is hard to find. And I was asking about the ecoregion before, and the woman was saying in the Blackland Prairie, can anybody guess what percentage of the original of that is left? 3%? Any other guesses? Closer. It's estimated to be 0.6%. Okay? And those are really hard to find. I know of one, and I'll tell you, when you walk on a prairie, what we call a virgin prairie, which doesn't have any sort of evidence of human disturbance or any kind of like invasive or exotic plants, it's a whole different experience. The soil sort of sinks under your feet in a different way. The amount of dynamism, whether it's like little bees or a blue bee that you've never seen, or some kind of a dragonfly that you've never seen, all these plants that you're used to seeing, maybe in landscapes, one of them, they just look a little different, right? And they're all intermingled. That's it's a unique and beautiful thing about Texas that a lot of Civil War people remarked on. You know, grass as high as a horse's eye, that sort of thing. And 0.6% of it's left, right? So I feel like, personally, part of my mission and part of why I do this is because I feel like we owe it to the migratory organisms, to the earth, right? Some people at my shop will say, okay, Al Gore. But I'm saying it's the basis for a lot of stuff, whether it's bees, whether it's butterflies. I don't know anybody who hates being surrounded by butterflies, right? And they need our help. They have to fly over that central part of the United States where they're exposed to herbicide for weeks, right? And so the point is that we need more of these seed-grown native plants that are quickly diminishing in nature. So a lot of times people will say, you know, that native, it just looks a little bit messy. And I just put on 3 that we grow. We do 238 species out at the ranch, out at our growing facility. The one on the left is called Barber's Buttons. You'll see bees on it. You don't ever have to water it. It's a beautiful little tight ground cover. And I wouldn't mind having a lawn just full of that. You know, something that's 4 inches tall that has a flower that goes up to 10 inches occasionally. In the middle is one of our native grasses, commonly called seep muley. And then on the right is a orange shrimp plant, which is more of a northern Mexican native. But as time goes on, we're going to have to look a little bit south and a little bit west for our plant palette. That's just the way it is. We're going to see fewer and fewer bald cypress, and we're going to see more and more Anacacha orchid, Arroyo sweetwood, that sort of thing. Okay? But I'm arguing that you can have a controlled and pretty sort of landscape even using exclusively natives and arguably exclusively endemics. Does anybody know what the difference between an endemic and a native is? Endemic just means it occurs only in that area. So if you see a plant name that is something like Linicus texensis, for example, it only occurs in Texas, right? And those are the ones that we're really losing quickly. So we're trying to make sure that people are aware of them, that you maybe don't use them exclusively. Maybe you still want the live oak and the St. Augustine or whatever, but maybe you have a patch that's dedicated to your veggies, and next to it you want to have a great pollinator garden that's low maintenance. Well, consider these, right? Because they're going to be lower input, higher productivity, and also you're going to see just more dynamics working out in your garden. It's really a neat experience rather than trying to just like if you just tended tomatoes, right? Go out every couple days, you grab your tomatoes, come back in. It's fulfilling, right? It's nice. But when you go out into a garden and there's just activity everywhere, there's birds. I know we're gonna have a bird expert here. If you have a yaupon, for instance, you'll have cedar waxwings. If you have tubular flowers, like for example, this justicia here, you'll get hummingbirds. Having that experience of having life all around you and participating in it, watching it, is to me where people change from being somebody who identifies themselves as like, I'm a gardener. I am outside as much as possible because it's sort of cathartic, right? I consider myself one of those. There are few options to find the kinds of plants I'm talking about. We are up in Pflugerville, like I said, but there's also Wright's Nursery that's kind of out on 183. If you look them up, you can find them. We are really lucky in Texas to have Native American seeds. Most of the country does not have a seed source that is run so ethically and so effectively as to get online, get 10 mixes of appropriate species for this area. They're vacuum sealed, they're from that season, they're fresh, the viability is high, and they send them right to your mailbox. And you can get right out there and plant them. That's Native American seeds. And then if you find yourself in San Antonio, there's a couple other, there's pollen natives, there's the nectar bar. But here in Austin, we really don't have a native nursery. We have nurseries that carry natives, but like I said, these are gonna be clones. And I'm not trying to disparage them, I'm just saying that's what's available to them, right? So a lot of these names you probably haven't heard of. And that's what I'm trying to change. That's why I'm coming out and speaking to people, is that if you're interested in this, if you want a low maintenance, never no maintenance is asphalt, right? Well, actually asphalt needs maintenance too, right? But I always say no maintenance, K-N-O-W, know your maintenance, right? Get out there, understand that grasses need something like a bison, occasionally to take them down, occasionally to deposit fertilizer. Okay, and then when you have these systems of a grass, a flowering, something that flowers maybe 2 months later, and you have this succession, that's no maintenance, but it's low maintenance. So it's K-N-O-W, and low, right? No and low. But those are just places you can find those. To conclude, we are going to do for y'all, and as just sort of a fun thing that Melanie, and by the way, Melanie is a juggernaut. She is really a heavy hitter, and I admire her a lot. She's got so many things going on that are beneficial, and has taught me a lot about that. And she suggested that we do something where we make it easier for you guys to grab some of these plants if you'd like. So what I did is we are finishing up on the website doing a password protected sale, which is you go in there, it'll ask you for a password. You're gonna put in Mueller 2026. And then you'll just have access to our plants. Buy whatever you want, and then we'll put them all in a box truck, take them to Bar Mansion, and on April Fool's Day the 1st, right? I will be the driving fool that takes them down there, and if you have questions about them, we can talk about it. And you would understand that they are going to be appropriate for your yard, and we hope to see them growing out here in your yards here, maybe in the park someday. So with that, I'm at 16 minutes. That's my time. But after the meeting, I'll be happy to speak with anybody if you have any questions. Okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Willie, and for that April 1st date, we may actually have a Mueller neighborhood event out at Bar Mansion for fun to tie in with that. Stay tuned. So our next speaker is Laura Tull. She is with Travis Audubon.
Something with these signs. This is what Audubon is doing right now during bird migration. And then I'll come back and tell you about a couple more things that they do. I don't think I'll be 15 minutes long because I don't think I have that much to say, but. All right, so I just want to show you that during bird migration, which is happening right now, and that's when birds fly, during this time of year, they're flying up north to go to their nesting grounds. Of course, not all birds migrate, but thousands and thousands of birds do migrate. And when they do that, most of them, I think, go at nighttime. And they get distracted by city lights. And what happens is they will, and the reason they get distracted is they're guided by the stars, the moon. And if they see other lights, they'll be attracted to it. And it causes a lot of dead birds. So what we ask is that people try to turn off their outside lights during the bird migration season. It's once in the spring, once in the fall for a couple of months. I have 3 of these signs today. The only thing you need to do is use this QR code to sign up for the sign. And I'm just going to rely on honesty and let you go ahead and use the QR code. And then whoever gets over here first, you can have that sign. Don't forget to take the metal, the stakes that go with it. So another thing I'd like to ask is how many people are part of a member of Audubon? Yeah, so we've got quite a few. Okay, so you are not allowed to answer this question. I want to know, and I'll give you some choices here. What is the leading killer of birds? Cats. Oh, you shouldn't be allowed to. Okay. Of the others, yes, that is correct, cats. Of the others, building crashes, cars, power lines, communication towers, and wind turbines. What is the least worrisome? Oh, I think I heard it. Yeah, wind turbines. So there was all this hoopla for a while. I mean, it still results, wind turbines still results in dead birds. But it was nowhere near the amount of birds that are killed by cats. So then we just asked people to keep their cats indoors. Now, I know there's a lot of feral cats out there as well. And at this point, there's not much we can do about them except to get them neutered and return them until they pass away. So I'm just gonna pass this around so you can see. And I'll also pass this around. It's just a little flyer that tells you what you should do if you find a dead bird. Okay, now on to more hopeful and happy things. So Audubon does basically 3 types of things. One is educate people through bird walks and special events, speakers, and that kind of thing. They do some advocacy with the state legislature and with our local city council. The last thing I remember that they did was there was a particular, I think it was a state law that was trying to be passed, and what it resulted in was allowing people more freedom on their own property to cut down ash junipers, or we call them cedars. The problem with that was that golden-cheeked warblers, our very own state endangered species, are very particular about their nesting material. And they will only take the very fine strands from older ash junipers. So as part of that, we wrote our senators, the committee, Audubon committee, talked to senators and state representatives, and that law did not get to be passed. So if you're interested in that kind of advocacy, Audubon's a great place to be for that. That's not so much my thing. I like doing bird walks. So one of the things that they provide each year is an educational opportunity for people to become what they call master birders. I still don't feel like I'm a master birder, but I did go through the process of their classes and field trips. And then at the end of that, for 3 years, you're obligated to do about 30 hours of volunteer work. And you get to keep your master birder certification forever after that. And that was not too much of a problem for me because I'm retired, and 30 hours, I was looking for things to do. Some of the people in this room I know have been on the bird walks here in Mueller, but I have 2 colleagues that also went to the same master birder class, and the 3 of us have been doing the birding walks over at the Southeast Greenway for about 3 years now. It's always on the 3rd Saturday of the month from 8 to 10. And you just go in. For all the bird walks, you do have to sign up or register online at travisaudubon.org. And bird walks are, some of them are free, some of them you pay money for. If you're a member, you get a discount on the ones that you actually have to have a fee for. But those are, one of the things that really attracted me to this organization, because I love watching birds and I like going out in nature. And the Southeast Greenway, for some reason, it's mainly the habitat, attracts more birds, more species of birds, than the Southwest Greenway or the Mueller Lake Pond. Another thing that they do is manage conservation. So they own several lots of land, or have been donated lots of land. In those lots, they have a couple of staff members that lead restoration projects. So one of them is over here on MLK. It's called Blair Woods. And it's a pretty small one. There's only like maybe a trail a mile long, but there is a pond in there. The Audubon headquarters is now located there. And so the person that manages that particular woods does a lot of work themselves, but it's mainly volunteers. So that's true of that. And there's another beautiful sanctuary. I say beautiful. I wouldn't say it's the most beautiful nature-wise. Our Baker Sanctuary is home to the golden-cheeked warbler. And a couple of years ago, I know that there were 60 nesting couples in that sanctuary. It's a completely gated and fenced in area. If you're an Audubon member, you can go out there. If you're not, you have to be part of a bird walk or go with a friend who's an Audubon member. But it is specifically restored for the golden-cheeked warbler. Another kind of thing that they do, and this is real, I think is really fun, is that they have these special events to celebrate birds in some way or another. And every year in the middle of summer, when it's very hot, they have a purple martin party wherever the purple martins happen to be. And for the last few years, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but there is a purple martin colony in the Southwest Greenway. And it's those white gourds that are up on a pole. Every year, the purple martins arrive in the spring. They nest here, and then they go back to South America. They're a bird species that they like to be with other birds. They live in colonies. But before they leave, they have this roosting behavior, which for the past couple of years has been at the Frontera shopping area up in Round Rock, and thousands of purple martins at nighttime during dusk will come and land in sort of a ballet, a swirling ballet in the sky, and then they all plop down into these trees and sleep for the night. They, gather everybody. That's a totally free event. One year they had Amy's ice cream, which I think was greatly appreciated. So let's see, I've mentioned education through the events and the walks, the advocacy part of it, and then the land that they manage. If you become a member of Audubon, you can, you can basically do whatever you want. If you want to just be a member, support it, that's fine with everyone. If you want to go on bird walks, 1 or 2 a year, that's fine. It's whatever you want it to be. If you want to deep dive into leading bird walks or advocacy, that would be great too. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, here, okay, Lunga.
Hi, Laura. I wondered if you could talk about birdability.
I don't know as much about birdability. Now, if you go to travisaudubon.org, there's a section on birdability, but it was begun by a woman named Virginia Rose, who's in a wheelchair, and she loved birding, but a lot of bird walks could not accommodate a wheelchair. I know that one thing that we've done is try to describe the terrain of a bird walk in more detail so that a person who has some kind of mobility issue or anything like that can make their own decision about whether this would be appropriate for them or not. But otherwise, it's I think it started as a separate type of thing, but definitely we're supported 100%.
My understanding is that there are only 8 accessible trails in all of Austin. We had Virginia Rose come to a mixed-use POA meeting, and she shared that the Southeast Greenway is one of only 8 in Austin that's accessible.
Oh, okay.
She reads groups there, so I just thought that was really unique and special that our neighborhood is one of the accessible.
Yeah, I have seen, because they have special birdability bird walks sometimes, and I know they've been over there a couple of times. So, yeah, that's nice. That's a good pat on the back for whoever designed those 3 ponds.
Quick question. So we have a beautiful red cardinal that for the last 2 weeks has rammed its head into all of our windows downstairs. we reached out to all of our neighbors. They gave us suggestions, including putting reflectors on our windows, moving up our screens, making sure our blinds are down. This cardinal comes every single day. At this point, you gotta have a head injury for banging his head against the wall. Do you have any suggestions on how to help him? Because we've tried those, and he just keeps coming and banging his head on the window.
Would you believe this is a common problem? Yes. Now, I think it's spring, it's mating season. Male birds become very territorial, and your neighbors are right. What they're reacting to is their reflection in the window. And so I think the only way you can stop that is by getting rid of the reflection.
So we did that. We put the screen protector thing that the neighbor gave us, so that way the bird can't see the window. And he's still banging his head, and I'm like, I don't know how much longer this bird's gonna live. If he's doing it every couple minutes for several hours a day.
Oh my gosh.
We tried to go out there, my husband tried to scare it away. He would fly away, and he'd come back. And then my husband would go out there again, he'd fly away and then come back.
What about taping up temporarily some soft material on that window so that he doesn't injure himself?
Sure.
But,
Thank you.
sure. Also, is Michelle Washington in here? Oh, okay. She's the one that invited me. I didn't see her. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Laura. And we had a bird walk today, and our own neighbor, Chris Brusen, led us. So it's an amazing experience. I encourage you to participate on those bird walks. Next up, to quickly cover some of the upcoming events. On Saturday, April 4th, we have our extravaganza, which is our egg hunt in Ellawooten Park, starting at 8:30 and it'll last till about noon. You can see some of the things we have. We have Tiny Tails, the animal petting service that's going to be there. We're going to have an egg hunt. I think she's breaking it up into 3 age groups in different parts of the park. We have face painters coming. We have a cupcake hop. So I encourage you to come out to Ellawooten on Saturday, April 4th. We're still looking for people to help volunteer too. So there's a QR code. Eid is coming up on Saturday, April 11th in Branch Park Pavilion. This is an amazing event that we've done. I think this is the 3rd or 4th year now. So please come out to the Branch Park Pavilion from 11 to 3 on April 11th. Lots of great food. The spring yard sale is coming up on Saturday, April 25th. Just in your front yard, although we usually have a central location, and I think we arrange for trucks to come pick up any leftover items that people don't want. This is a summation of the things coming up. We have Juneteenth on 6th of June. We have the annual 4th of July parade and celebration on the 4th of July. We have the Mid-Autumn Festival on the 3rd of October. And we have another yard sale on the 7th of November. And we're always looking for volunteers. Glen is always looking for volunteers. Our next presentation on the agenda is a proposal for Mueller Dog Parks. And we have Merrill with the Dog Park Coalition to present.
Hi, my name is Meryl Foote. I'm a Mueller resident and a member and founder of the Mueller Dog Park Coalition. And so I'm here today to give you all an update on where we are on the efforts to have a dog park, a designated off-leash area in Mueller. So who is the Mueller Dog Park Coalition? We are a grassroots initiative that supports having an off-leash area in Mueller. Founded in January 2025, and we now have about 350 members. Okay, so why does Mueller need an off-leash area? There have been 3 surveys done on this topic, and the coalition did one based on an Austin Parks and Recreation Department survey that they do for dog parks. And in that survey, 88% of people report having encounters with off-leash dogs in Mueller daily or weekly. 78% say off-leash dogs cause conflicts with people in Mueller. So the coalition has been working with a group of, with a number of stakeholders to try to look at this issue and figure out how we can bring an off-leash area to Mueller so that people can safely go there with their dogs and meet each other and let their dogs run and play. The stakeholders include the Mueller Neighborhood Association, other nearby neighborhood associations. Mueller is a system of parks that are open to the public, and the neighborhoods around us have residents who come here on a regular basis, and they bring their dogs and take their dogs for walks. They do a lot of other things here too. We also have been working with the Mueller developer, originally Catellus, now Banbury. We have been working with the Mueller Property Owners Association, Mueller residents, the Austin City Council District 9, Council member Zoe Kadri was just here but had to leave. He's been part of the discussions. Austin Parks and Recreation Department and Austin Economic Development Office. So a lot of people have been involved in the discussion. We're finally have something to report. So that's what this update is about. So I'm going to briefly go through the process and talk about some key milestones or key things that have happened during that process. The City of Austin, Austin Parks and Recreation Department, has offered to pay for one off-leash pilot project in Mueller. The locations that Banbury, the developer, proposed were the northwest and the southeast greenways. Sorry, that's a typo. The Mueller Dog Park Coalition, a dog park working group, and the City of Austin all also over the last 2 years have identified Garcia Park on Zach Scott as a third option. The Mueller Dog Park Working Group was appointed by the Mueller POA to look at this issue and come back with recommendations on if we should have a dog park, and if so, where should the pilot project be. The POA Working Group, which included members of Mueller and also neighborhoods around Mueller, unanimously voted for an off-leash area, but split 5-4 in favor of the Northwest Greenway. They also requested to consider Garcia Park as an alternative, but the developer did not allow that to be a consideration. The 3 surveys I mentioned earlier, all 3 of them show that more people support an off-leash area in the southeast area of Mueller, and that they prefer Garcia Park over the Southeast Greenway. There's also support for the Northwest Greenway. There's a neighborhood right next to it, Delwood 2. They would love to have it there. Many of our apartment communities are closer to that area, and Cooper here is going to get up and talk about walkability for both locations in a few minutes. So because of the public input that we've gotten, the coalition proposes having 2 pilot projects and has offered to pay for the second pilot project to raise the money to do that. The city estimates that the cost would be approximately $5,000, and the coalition has offered to fundraise to raise that money, and Austin Parks Foundation has agreed to accept the donations. They're a nonprofit that supports the city's park system, and they would accept the donations, so it would be a donation to a nonprofit, and then they would hold that money on behalf of the city and then transfer the funds to the city once the green light's given, if and when the green light is given for a second pilot. Okay, so I just wanted to show you briefly where these 2 areas are. Garcia Park, the Zach Scott Park, is next to the track that you all can see on Zach Scott behind the middle school, sort of catty corner behind the middle school. The Northwest Greenway is behind or below, next to the shopping center that has Sprouts and a number of other shops. And it also dead ends straight into the I-35 access road. So briefly, I want to just give you an overview of the 3 surveys findings. The 2025 POA survey had almost 1,000 respondents. 46% of them said they want to have an off-leash area in southeast Mueller, and 38% want the Northwest Greenway. The Coalition's survey had about 300 responses. 63% said they are more likely to use a southeast Mueller off-leash area. 36% are likely to use the Northwest Greenway. The Coalition in February did an advocacy poll of its members. I think it was also sent to people who aren't in the Coalition, but the survey wasn't set up to ask if you were a member or not, it just wanted input. So 151 respondents, 62% said they want a park in the Southeast Mueller area. 42% of those people prefer the Zach Scott Park over the Southeast Greenway. And 58 people, 26%, want the Northwest Greenway location. So it's clear that there's support for both places and that the majority is for the southeast area of the neighborhood, and I think that's because that's where more of the POA members live and have easier access to. So the Coalition has submitted a request to the Property Owners Association to approve 2 pilot projects, one at the Northwest Greenway and one at Garcia Park. The City of Austin today owns both properties. Garcia Park is being transferred to the developer, who will then transfer it to the POA if I have that process right. And we learned at a recent mixed-use board meeting that all of Mueller's parks have a public use easement. And what this means is that the city can actually build city-funded infrastructure on our parks and has the option to include us in their liability insurance for that facility. So that was good to hear. It tells us that Garcia Park is a viable option. As I said, we've offered to fundraise, and what we'd like to see happen is that if we do indeed have an off-leash pilot project in Garcia Park, we'd like to see that as a mixed-use place, sort of like what you see at Zilker Park or what you see at Auditorium Shores. The Northwest Greenway, because of its proximity to I-35, really needs to have your traditional big box, fenced-in, dedicated dog park. I think that's going to be what the City of Austin is going to want to build there too. Yeah, so mixed use would be, so for example, at Zilker Park, you can see people with off-leash dogs, you can see people flying kites, you can see people jogging, you can see people riding bikes, you can see people playing sports all in the same area at different times and sometimes at the same time. So basically what it would require is a fence around the field's perimeter. But that means the bigger the fence, the more you can do inside that space. And so that's what that would mean. Let's see, we also asked that the Coalition and the Neighborhood Association be involved in the pilot project planning, design, and evaluation process. Other groups as well, depending on who the POA thinks and the city thinks should be involved. We don't want to limit it to those two, but those are the two groups who've been most involved and most interested in this process for the last 2 years. We asked that we postpone the Garcia Park transfer until the pilot project can be done, but we've learned since then that because of the public use easement, that's no longer an issue. We also asked that there be a public process before public parkland is transferred to a private owner in Mueller. We're almost done with that process, but there are still some lands that are scheduled to be transferred, and we think it would be really a good idea now that our neighborhood is almost completely built out, that we find out how people who live here want to use the property and not just make a decision based on what the developer wants to do with it. I think getting public input is always better. We are very opposed and have been opposed from the beginning to using POA funds for an off-leash area. And the reason why is that the only way that we will have an off-leash area is if the city builds it. The POA is not going to build one, and I don't think it's appropriate for the POA to take that on, because any off-leash area that we build in this neighborhood will be used by the public, just like all of our park facilities are used by the public today. It's just not something that the POA should have to pay for. Instead, we are willing to do what we need to do to help raise funds, including working with our council member to seek city funds. There's a story back there, I made 20 copies of it, that came out this week about how a Circle C park was funded through city funds for the amount of almost $300,000, and that was following a pilot project that was successful in Circle C. And I think that that's a good model for us to look to as well. And I mentioned the story here, and again, it's back there if you all want to take a look at it.
Meryl, I know that for the pilot program, the city is able to do 5,000, and the Dog Park Coalition is trying to raise another 5,000 for the second proposed pilot. But what does if everything goes according to plan, what's the maintenance that the POA to make it permanent? What would that cost?
So actually, this is the Dog Park Working Group talked about maintenance costs, and because this is very important to understand. The POA is already paying to maintain Garcia Park. The POA is also maintaining the Northwest Greenway. The city's reimbursing us for some, but not all of those costs. So there's already embedded costs in both of those locations of what we are doing now to maintain it. The maintenance that would increase because of an off-leash pilot project or a permanent park is basically having porter services there more often to remove the dog poo stations, clean them out. So that's really because we're already paying for water, we're already paying for landscaping, we're already paying for trash pickup, we're already paying for all of those things. If you look at Circle C's maintenance costs, they were starting from a green field. They had nothing there. They weren't doing maintenance. They didn't have poo stations. Their costs were from ground zero, and they were estimated to be around $20,000. But again, we're already doing almost all the work that will need to be done. So the incremental cost, according to what the working group concluded, would be very minimal. So thank you for that question. I'd like to finish my presentation, please, and then we can do questions. Yeah, thank you. We believe that the only way to really fairly assess both of those locations is to have 2 pilot projects. It will give us unbiased, accurate information. Each site would have a QR code to a survey that would be developed and evaluated by the City Parks Department. They already have a survey instrument that they've used at other pilot projects, and they have some pretty good experience at doing these pilots because they've done them at several locations. And again, I'm not going to take away from what Cooper's going to tell you, but the walkability of both locations is very different. And in a nutshell, it's going to mean that more people will have to drive to the Northwest Greenway. The Mueller POA's Mixed Use Board on Monday voted on the off-leash pilot. And in summary, and we have our chair of the board here, so if I get anything wrong, please feel free to correct me. But my understanding is that what the Mixed Use Board has voted on to recommend to the Master Board for final review and approval or not is to begin planning and implementing the Northwest Greenway off-leash park, dog park pilot project beginning no earlier than January 1st. Coordinate with Austin Pard to design the pilot project, and Austin Pard is responsible for funding and installing the fence. Mueller would continue to do the maintenance that we're already doing there, plus more frequent porter services, and to invite the coalition or some other community organization, but I think we're probably the ones most interested in doing the work, to submit a formal proposal for an off-leash area at Garcia Park using the Mueller POA's new proposal process and format. These recommendations are going to the master board for a final vote on March 26th, and that meeting will be here at 6:30 p.m. Now, questions?
In the chat, questions.
Okay, I might need help getting to the chat. I don't want to mess anything up. Oh, you can do them? Okay, yes.
Is the objective to end up with one or to end up with two?
Well, that's a good question, and I think that, and I think we need to look at what the feedback would be from the community using both locations. We have 2 pools in this neighborhood, one on each side of Berkman. We have playgrounds all over the neighborhood. We have sports fields all over the neighborhood, but we're the size of a medium-sized Texas city. East Austin is terribly deficient on off-leash areas. The city has 30 off-leash areas right now. I believe only one city-owned and, operated off-leash area is in East Austin. Yes, we do propose 2 pilots so that we can test both locations. Whether the boards decide that the feedback is that we should have 2, who knows? That's a question to be answered going forward, and I don't have the answer. Yes.
Have you evaluated the parking opportunities in the 2 spots? Because I ride a bike or a trike to get to them, but I can see a lot of people wouldn't want to walk.
Right. So actually, the Northwest Greenway has street parking, but most of it is paid parking. And my understanding is that the city plans to make all of it eventually paid parking. There's no parking lot, there's no bathrooms at that location. There is a shopping center next door, and Banbury has talked to the manager, the current manager of that shopping center, and they said they would be willing to allow people to park there. I'd like to get that in writing so that it's if the manager changes, the policy doesn't change. So that could be a parking solution there. At Garcia Park, it's next to the middle school, and it also has a lot of street parking on Zach Scott. So most people use the dog parks in the afternoons, late afternoons, evenings, and weekends. And the school has lots of parking. So that would be a possibility.
Did they authorize the parking?
We haven't talked to them about that because specifically for this purpose, but they do allow people to use their facilities, and including their parking lot, their sports field, their tennis courts after hours. Yes.
So behind the buildings in that shopping area, there's a big area that's rarely used. I ride my trike through there, and I mean, you don't even see delivery trucks, though they may come in the middle of the night. So while it's not perfectly flat, that might be something you investigate as possible parking.
Are you talking about this area here?
There's head-in parking there, but it's the delivery area.
Right. So this belongs to the shopping center. It would be up to them to allow people to park there. If they don't allow it and you park there, you could be towed in theory. But yeah, I mean, there is parking there for sure. Yes.
On those 2 pictures,
Yes.
minimum dog park is 10,000 square feet. How much of that space at Zach Scott, Northwest Greenway, does that take up?
We don't know. That's a good question. For Garcia Park, Zach Scott Park, that's one of the things that would have to be looked at for a formal in the development of a formal proposal.
How big is that space?
I don't know.
Half of it, all of it?
Oh, so what we would talk about, if the POA and the mixed use board and master board were agreeable for it to be mixed use, what you would have to do is have a fence that goes sort of around this outline. So the trail would be outside of the fence, the sidewalk would be outside of the fence, definitely bigger than 10,000 square feet. Both of these locations are bigger than 10,000 square feet. This one is long and narrow. And there's I don't know if this is a trail. So it would probably have to be, I've seen a diagram that the city proposed in 2024, but It was basically to have a off-leash area pilot project in this space.
It's my understanding that there are already quite a few off-leash dog parks within 3 miles of Mueller. Little Walnut Creek Dog Park, Triangle Commons Neighborhood Dog Park, Walden Bark Park. So I guess I'm curious about the statement that there aren't any nearby off-leash dog parks.
What I said were there were no city-owned, other than Walnut Creek just opened last fall. There's zero parking there. Zero parking. You have to, and it's the only city-owned park in East Austin. The rest that you mentioned are all private.
The parking for Garcia Park, I'm curious about because there's only about 25 spots by the skate park and the Southeast Greenway. And I'm also curious about off-leash dogs still crossing over to the Southeast Greenway. It's only about 0.25 miles between Garcia and Southeast.
Right, it's a quarter of a mile. As I said, there's ample parking on Zach Scott. More people said they would want to walk to this location. I think this is the more walkable for the majority of people who live in our neighborhood. And again, Cooper's going to be talking about that. There's also a lot of parking, as I said, at the middle school, which is, you can't see it in this photo, but it's over in this direction. And there's also street parking along, I think that's Tilly. Yeah, so I think that there's ample parking there as well. But again, that's why we would do a formal proposal and do a pilot project. Remember, we're talking about 2 pilot projects. We are not talking about permanent installations. And the reason why you do pilot projects is so that you can see if the fears, concerns are valid. Does the data, does the experience support that? And until you do a pilot project, it's just all conjecture.
It's my understanding that there are more renters in Mueller than homeowners, so then would not the Northwest Greenway benefit more Mueller residents?
So Cooper's going to get up and talk about walkability. So Kaz, what were the online questions?
Lauren, if you want to unmute yourself and state your question.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Sorry I can't be there in person today. Thanks for the information, Meryl. I just have a couple of questions that I was hoping to kind of clarify about the presentation and then some of the next steps. So the first was about the survey data, and it looked like the POA survey, which had the most participants. I just wanted to clarify that survey did not include anything about Garcia Park, that was about the Southeast Greenway and the Northeast Greenway. Is that correct?
So the question is, did the POA survey include Garcia Park specifically? And the answer is no, because the developer said that we could not consider it. People wanted the Southeast Greenway because that was the only option offered to them in the Southeast area, and that's why the coalition went back again in February and did a poll to find out whether people preferred Southeast Greenway, not Southeast Greenway, Southeast area of Mueller over the Northwest Greenway, and if so, did they prefer the Greenway or Garcia Park? And
okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
That's helpful. I just want to clarify because as someone who is not in the coalition but has followed really closely and actively engaged in the POA survey, I was surprised this last week to learn that Garcia Park was being considered. And so I'm worried a little bit that there are other neighbors as well who may not even realize that this site is being considered, and so that the same community engagement
I'll repeat that.
For those neighbors as well.
Right, so the concern is that there hasn't been a public process on Garcia Park, and that's why the Mixed Use Board has asked us to present a formal proposal. If that formal proposal is accepted, and the proposal would be to do a study and have a pilot project there would be a process for that.
Okay, thank you. And then my next question was around some of the finances. And so my understanding of the meeting on Monday was that the city contribution is possible, but it's not guaranteed. And the contribution would not be enough to meet the standards of for example, they talked about the fencing, that it would not provide the funding for fencing that's in alignment with our neighborhood regulations. And so I'm just wondering, is there new information? Because there was a lot of concern about the maintenance costs and the ongoing concerns with that? It sounds like maybe that's less of a concern from your standpoint, but can you help me kind of rectify that?
Yes, so the question was about the finances and the discussion at the mixed use board. So the mixed use board had a discussion about fencing, and this was a discussion about fencing at the pilot project. And the question that was raised was, do we have to meet, does a pilot project, which would be probably 4 to 6 months, some of them have gone as long as a year, depending on what the community wanted, would the fencing have to be the permanent fencing that Mueller would require for a permanent installation, or would the chain link fencing that they typically use for a pilot project, which is temporary, it's not embedded in the ground, they put sandbags down to keep the fencing in place, would that be acceptable? And I believe Brian, the developer, clarified that for a temporary project, we would not have to meet Mueller's permanent fencing standards. So the question about fencing, I think, was resolved. It would be.
Okay, it's more the overall financial picture, not so much fencing, but the POA I walked away thinking it was significant.
So, as I said earlier, our position is, and has always been from the beginning, we don't think the POA should have to pay for a dog park. The maintenance is minimal based on what the working group heard. I was a member of the working group, and there's another member who's here as well, Mark Akins. So what we concluded as a whole, the entire working group, was that the maintenance costs, because most of those maintenance costs are already being incurred for both of those locations, the incremental increase by putting a dog park there would be minimal and would most likely include increased porter services for the dog waste stations.
Okay, thank you so much. And then my last question, sorry, I messed up. The assessments that
There's already water there.
The other locations was that the dog park is not recommended to be near a school. From my understanding of the map, it looks like the Garcia site would be between a school and a daycare, and I'm just wondering how the group plans to address that concern that was in the original assessment.
So the question was having a dog park near a middle school and near a daycare. And the city has a number of dog parks that are exactly in the location. In fact, one of the first pilot projects I went to was right next to Zilker Elementary. And in fact, the reason why they were doing the pilot project there was because there were so many complaints about off-leash dogs next to the school. And they were looking at that spot as a place to put a pilot project. I don't think that project ended up going through to become a permanent project because it was very small. That was the primary concern, was that it was too small. So they just are living with what they had before, which are off-leash dogs in that area and no fence.
I've read the report.
Okay, thank you, that's helpful. I just worry that...
I'm sorry, she's still talking. Please, thank you. Go ahead.
Recommendations is to not have the nearest school, and so I would hate for us to do a pilot project on a site that eventually is going to cause problems later because of that.
Well, again, that's why we would do a formal proposal with some research and information in there, and there would be a process to consider that.
I need to.
Thank you
Okay.
so much.
We're running past 11:30, so is there a desire to extend the meeting probably 30 minutes to address this issue? I just want to see general reception. Okay, well, let's do.
Yeah,
Lauren,
I know.
are you a member of the neighborhood association? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, so I think it's
You're
time.
kind of dominating the conversation, so
Can-
we're going to move on to in-person, please.
So can we invite Cooper to come up and talk a little bit about walkability?
So my name is Cooper, and I'm going to ask to hold the questions till the end, and please not interrupt. I'll get to the questions at the end if we have time. Sorry, I've prepared some maps showing the walkabilities of the locations. This is the existing dog run, which is close to downtown. It's very small, so it doesn't, it's not very large, but I just wanted to show that to start out with. I'm sorry. Apparently I don't know how to use technology. Okay, yeah, this is the Northwestern Greenway. So I have these color bands, and green shows if it's under 15 minutes. You can see this little legend down here. And under 15 minutes would cover most of the apartments downtown, but most of the homeowners that live in Mueller, they would not be able to walk to the Northwestern Greenway very easily. And this is one-way walkability, so you also have to remember you have to walk back after your dogs are tired. The people down in the purple, that's between 30 to 40-minute walk one direction. So those people would essentially be forced to drive to the dog park, which would increase the car traffic there and also potentially cause issues with parking. But overall, like, most people want to walk to the dog park rather than drive if you ask the people that actually own dogs. I'm sorry, can we limit the questions in chat? It's like blocking my map. Thank you. We'll get to the questions at the end. Yeah, so, and there's also some apartments down here next to the tower. Okay. Yeah, so this is Garcia Park. This is what we're talking about. It's very close to the Southeastern Greenway. This over here is the Southeastern Greenway, and there's also a green space here. The area is the size of several football fields, so it's actually a really large area, and the Southeastern Greenway has another very large field here. So there's plenty of space for other things like sports and that kind of thing. I live very close to here, and I very rarely see both fields used at the same time. You'll sometimes see people playing soccer in one field or the other, whether it be Garcia Park or the Southeastern Greenway. But there is just a lot of space that currently is not being used. There's the skate park right next to it that already has bathrooms installed. And for the homeowners, it's quite walkable. And if you look at this chart in the top right, I mean, you can see like how many people and how many dogs can get to this location in under 15 minutes. It's quite substantial. Nobody in the neighborhood would have to walk more than 30 minutes, and everybody except for 72 people who live in the Greenway Lofts, they would be able to walk there in under 25 minutes. So this map shows, like, based on where you live, which one is closer. So you can see for most people that are homeowners, also the people who live in these 3 apartments, Garcia Park is closer. Northwestern Greenway, even for the apartment owners, it's still quite a substantial walk away. It's not right next to them. They'd still have to walk, but it's a bit closer for them. And in this chart, this just shows Garcia Park and Northwestern Greenway, the walking distances for the people that live in the apartments and the home people. And I used like survey result data on like large surveys to estimate the number of people that live in apartments and number of people that live in homes and like dog owners and stuff. So I have the home numbers, the apartment numbers, and as well as like the estimated number of people and dogs that live in them. If you look at this for, let's say, all people, within 15 minutes of the park, 6,000 people would be able to get to the Northwestern Greenway. 7,600 would be able to get to Garcia Park. However, of that, roughly 2,000 of those people live in an apartment that already has a dog park for the Northwestern Greenway. Yeah, and then if you look at these bands down here, you can just see overall Garcia Park is much closer for most people in the community. Yeah, I have all my sources cited here, and so like all of this is backed by facts. So anyway, I will now answer questions if we have time. I'm not sure if we do. And I will do, since we're running low on time, I think one question per person, if that's fine.
Well, and we're going to entertain questions that pertain to the 2 pilot projects. We're not going to entertain permanent dog park questions because that's not up for a vote today. Yes.
I live very close to my name is Karen Ascott. I have 2 very large dogs. I walk them every day. I live very close to the Southeast Greenway, and I walk around it every morning. I would just like to point out that every single day I see at least 3 people driving up and letting their dogs out, and this is just in the 5 minutes that it takes me to walk from my house around and by the skate park and onward. There are evenings when there are cars parked all the way downtown Mueller. This is good research, Cooper, but it's slightly irrelevant in the sense that, as Merrill pointed out, if we have a dog park, it's open to everyone in the city. So people from Windsor Park and all over East Austin are going to be coming and parking. So the walkability is kind of a moot point.
If there's no parking, they won't be parking and going to the dog park. If it's completely, if it's completely parked up, there's nowhere to park. So they won't be visiting a dog park. That's just factual.
They are the cars parking it up, which also means that
Well, it will be parked up. It will be parked up, won't it? There will be a maximum.
You don't need to interrupt me.
Well,
you have a podium at your meetings. You can let the rest of us speak once in a while. The point
it's going to be factual statements.
between parking for neighbors and friends, and if I want to have a few people come over to my house for an event, but the street is already completely filled.
I'd like to address that.
This is a proposed use change, which is almost like putting in a commercial location. It's quite different from this, my neighbor having a party and having 50 cars show up for 4 hours. That's not going to bother me.
So I'd like to just respond. Our parks are open, have always been open.
Every single park is open to the public.
And what I'd also like to say is that that's why you do a pilot. You test whether your theory is accurate. I live on Tom Miller. There are people parked in front of my house all day long because they're coming to our parks. And that's just the way it is in our neighborhood. It's a high density, mixed use neighborhood. And what we're talking about is a recreational use. This is not a commercial use. And your concern is about the Southeast Greenway. You mentioned dogs in the Southeast Greenway. Once we have a place for people to go where it's okay and legal for them to be off leash with their dogs, I think we'll see less violations in our neighborhood.
Yep. And
I also think the process has been problematic because when this all started, the only location considered was Southeast, and only about 5 homes had been notified. You guys need to send written letters.
No, that was the developer's decision. The developer said that we needed to have a community engagement process, and that process involved notifying the 4 homeowners. I disagreed with that process too. It was deeply flawed. And I'm glad that we finally ended up with a public process, and the same kind of process I imagine would be envisioned if there's a decision to do a pilot project in Garcia or to consider it. That hasn't happened yet. That's what this meeting is about, and that's what the board meeting on March 26th will be about.
Last comment is simply that we did have an official process, which you mentioned, the working group, the dog park working group. They spent, 6, 8, 10 months on this, and yet here we are again because you don't want to give up on preferred locations.
The working group met for 7 hours, a total of 7 hours. They never visited either site. I was on the working group. We asked repeatedly to visit the locations with the city to talk about pros and cons from their perspective. I think that the reason why we're looking at Garcia Park is because there's such strong opposition from you all, the neighbors, to the Southeast Greenway. There's got to be compromise, and we have to look at what the needs of our neighborhood are overall. And 3 surveys show that the majority of people who live in this neighborhood want an off-leash area in the southeast corner of the neighborhood. And you've removed one of those options, the one that the developer pointed us to, and said this is the only place you can consider in this area of the neighborhood. We're trying to compromise and find other places, and we ask you to work with us, please. Yes.
Carol, when the working group voted on the Northwest, was there ever an environmental study done?
No.
Or do we assume there's no birds there?
There was no environmental discussion at all in the working group about the Northwest Greenway, even though there is water issue.
Audubon Society with that area.
I don't know anything about birds in that area.
On the survey, are there like 8,000 residents of Mueller?
Yes.
And there were 192. I'm just wondering how we were feeling like most of the residents want this, and there were 192 responses.
No, there were almost 1,000 responses. And the only reason why there were that many responses is because the Dog Park Coalition delivered neutral cards to almost every household in the neighborhood. We ran out of cards and we ran out of time to order more. All it said was, the POA is conducting a survey on a dog park, please take it. And there were almost 1,000 responses because we promoted it. We want the community's input.
So the 192 refers to?
No, that is the February poll that the coalition did, asking the coalition members which site they preferred. And that was the follow-up asking for advocacy purposes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go back to the survey, the results that I showed you, more people who took the POA survey want it in the southeast area of the neighborhood as well.
So 1,000 of 8,000, and then no apartment.
I can't make people take the survey. Nobody can make people take it.
I remember seeing a survey.
But I never got a card, and
I
I
got a card
near the location.
But also,
Everyone got an email.
The POA did extensive marketing. If people don't,
the apartment, that was my only question, how many, did it include apartments as well?
we worked with Omling. I actually advocated to have an apartment person on there because they weren't represented, and the developer and the POA refused to appoint a member of the neighborhood association to that. The neighborhood association is who represents the apartments in this neighborhood, and they were not given a seat at the table.
Oh yeah, so to summarize, Garcia Park is much more walkable for the neighborhood residents. When you're building a amenity for anyone, whether it be the pool, whether it be playgrounds, you want to put the amenity where the people are, right? If you're building a playground, you want to build it in a neighborhood where the kids are, right? If you're building a pool, you want it to be walkable, right? You don't want to have to drive to the pool. Same thing with dogs, right? Like I have 2 dogs. I want to be able to walk to the dog park. I don't want to have to put my dogs in my car and drive them to the park twice a day. That's just not what we stand for in Mueller, because we're a walkable community and the amenities should be walkable. And not everybody has to use the amenities. It's okay if you don't have a dog. Not everyone has kids, right? So we still have playgrounds, and I support playgrounds, right? I love kids, even though I don't have one myself. I just want everybody to work as a community and provide amenities that work for everybody. Whether you like to swim, whether you like to play with your kids, or if you like to play with your dogs. I think we should have the ability to just be able to enjoy the community.
In terms of time, we're going to cut off debate on this. We need to finish by noon because there are even hesitations. We are considering essentially what the Dog Park Coalition is proposing. This is a support from the Mueller Neighborhood Association that will go to the master board, which we'll vote on this on the 26th. Essentially, the first 4 points. We are going to approve, we are asking for the, and this, for the most part, goes along with the mixed use motion that was passed last Monday. Approve a pilot project in the Northwest Greenway at a date determined by the master board. The mixed use board stated January 1st. The process could begin. We are asking them, if the neighborhood MNA approves this today, direct staff, and that's probably Cohere staff, because they're the management of the neighborhood property owners association. Study a pilot project at Garcia Park contingent on receiving a formal request, because there's a formal request process through the POA now. I've done two, so I know what it is. Direct staff to collaborate with Mueller stakeholder groups on pilot project studies, planning, design, and evaluation process, including the Mueller Neighborhood Association and the Mueller Dog Park Coalition. 4, specify that the Mueller POA should not pay for construction of a permanent off-leash area in Mueller. Rather, the funds should come from other sources, such as public funds, nonprofit grants, and private donations. We're going to, the Dog Park Coalition is going to raise funds. The city of Austin has agreed to build the first pilot project. The first one, the fence, yes, that is correct. They consider it environmental. That's what the Parks Department does. Okay, it's not proposed for the Southeast Greenway. You can request that in the Parks Department. We're going to have a public process as part of the proposal to study Garcia Park. Northwest has been approved, Northwest has been approved by both the working group and the mixed use department. It's going to be before the master development Thursday. So any opposition can appear before the master development. I would make it required to be based in fact, personally. I'm going to call the question. You have to have been a member of the Mueller Neighborhood Association for 2 weeks to vote. That's in our bylaws. So if you join today, you cannot vote on this issue. Yes.
Has this letter been posted for over 7 days for people to be aware of it in order to vote?
We didn't get 7 days. We got 3 days. And you're reading? Well, it does.
So there can't be a vote today.
Well, didn't. Okay.
Actually, Andrew, the bylaws require that notice be posted, not the actual material. If you look at the bylaws, and we get notice on, I believe, the March 5th when we sent the first reading letter.
It didn't say it was a vote.
Yes, it was an action item.
It just said action item, not mention a vote.
Well, that's what an action item means. That's what an action item means, is a vote. And I put the, sorry, the announcement the meeting has been up for 3 months. I put every single meeting up on the website and on Facebook. Well, on the website, the Mueller Neighborhood Association. So I call the vote. Debate's ended. Those who are members of 2 weeks or more of the Mueller Neighborhood Association, if you're in favor of the Mueller Neighborhood Association forwarding this recommendation on, please raise your hand.
Do you need a formal proposal in second?
You need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I move to endorse the statement that's on the screen.
Thank you.
I second it.
Thank you. Vote, please, in favor.
Right?
And sorry, I need to bring up the people online. I'm not. I wish I wanted them minimized. The people. Oh, there they are.
I showed John.
John. Okay, 16. Those against? Against, sorry. I count 3, including online.
I showed Laura.
Yeah, I got her, that's the 3. 2 hands up in the room. Abstaining, 2 abstaining. Thank you very much, it passes. As the chair, I'll sign the recommendation letter to go forward. Thank you very much, and thank you for hanging out until noon. Understand that this issue comes before the decision makers on the 26th, the master board that meets in this room. Yeah.
Please take the yogurt home.
Thank you very much. Yeah, there was amazing food from Thursday's Sustainable Food meeting.
Justin said he could post as well.
Okay, so well, that's 4. 16 against, 4, and 4 against. Thank you very much.
Oh, and Alec.
5.
Okay, so that's the end of the dog park meeting. We're going to the master board on the 26th, and should be interesting. Thanks for watching. Please hit subscribe and like, and we'll bring you more of this just like it is.